I am your host, Edie Cay. Really excited to have Catherine Stein here today. I'm going to show you guys the graphic here so you can check it out. She is an author of steampunk novels from the Victorian and Edwardian. And I also want to remind you guys that if you want to identify yourself on Facebook, you do need to go to that. Ooh, if I can get it, there we go. Address so that you can get your identification on there if you're on Facebook. That way I can see when you comment who you are. So now that we've got things figured out there, I would like to introduce to you Catherine Stein, who started reading at age 2 when her mother noticed that she could tell the difference between words that started with the same letter. And ever since, she's wandered around with a book in her hand, her backpack, her purse, or even tucked down the back of her pants. A few years ago, after she began to read, she also began to write and spent the majority of her school career writing non-school related stories in her notebooks. In college, she took the daring step of majoring in art history, which allowed her to study abroad. And in a small town in Tuscany, she participated in an archaeological dig and found copious amounts of Etruscan roof tiles. She had the distinction of being the only student to enjoy cataloging the artifacts. Catherine has twice won the Prism Award in 2019 and 2020 for the best steampunk novel, and Catherine can often be found dressed in clothing that was purchased at a Renaissance festival and drinking copious amounts of tea. So that is something that we have in common. And so please welcome Catherine Stein. Hello.
Hi. It is great to be here.
Yeah, so lovely to have you on. I'm very excited. I did get a chance to read your latest book, The Courtesan and wait, I always get it reversed. Yeah, The Courtesan and Dr.
Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. Which was fantastic and unusual in the fact that it's the only steampunk I've read that was set in the Midwest. I've read other steampunk that was set in New Orleans and London and Paris. Right. But I've never had one set in Detroit.
Yeah. So the first book actually that I set in the Midwest came from one of my other series. Book 1 in my Sass and Steam series, Eden's Voice, takes place in my hometown of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I chose that because I like you said, the steampunk is in New Orleans and New York and London and Paris. They're always these big cities. I'm like, I want to do like steampunk in a small place and not like Wild West small town, just like a regular town. So Ann Arbor's a college town. That's where the University of Michigan is. And so I was like, I want to write a book in my town. So that's what I did. I set it around the 1904 football season. So the whole book takes place like over the course of the college football season during 1904. And I got to include all kinds of really cool stuff about my city. I got to do research for a lot of stuff about Ann Arbor in the past. And so now I know all these really interesting facts about historical Ann Arbor. So if anybody ever comes here and they wanted like the walking tour of where things used to be, I can give them that. But I really loved writing a book in Michigan. So I wanted to have some more books. In Michigan and Detroit is a really great setting because Detroit around the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century was a really hopping town. It was very, very multicultural. So in this new series with The Courtesan and Mr. Hyde, this the first book. There'll be 3 books in that series, and they will all be set in Detroit and in Michigan. And you'll notice that I have lots of names, like of just random side characters from a lot of different ethnic backgrounds, and that's just because Detroit was a very, very multicultural city. Mm-hmm. And so it was not uncommon to like wander around the city and hear people speaking in a whole bunch of different languages. And so I kind of wanted to reflect that just in things like characters' names and characters' backgrounds. And so that was really fun to do.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I noticed that. So I guess I was going to have us have a nice little gentle intro and talk a little bit. And then I just kind of blew it and just immediately started talking about you.
That's okay.
Well, it's exciting.
You can always go backtrack and go in and out.
So, well, it was really exciting because I did really enjoy it because it is a take on uh, well, I mean, a take, but it's a take on Victorian literature because you
Mhm.
have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You do have Victor Frankenstein as
Yep.
a side character. You do have, I'm sorry, I'm blanking because my memory is terrible. Um, Nemo,
Yes.
Captain Nemo in there. So you have all of these Victorian characters that we think of, but they're in Detroit.
Yes.
And it's
Yep.
really
I
interesting.
moved them. Yeah, and so Captain Nemo is going to be on the Great Lakes because
Of
that's
course
they're
he is.
starting in Detroit. So that's how the submarine is going to work there. Like Detroit and Windsor are just divided by a river. Um, and so there's a lot of traffic by ship
Yeah.
going in and out of the city. And the docks were really, really big at the time the books are set.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I was kind of curious how, I mean, whenever you start a new book and you can see that it's got a series because it's got it literally written on the cover, right?
Right.
Book one. And so you're always like looking out to the side characters, like, oh, I wonder who's going to get the next book. Who is it going to be? So,
Hmm.
who is it going to be for your next book? Who are you going to?
Um, Victor is the sort of main character of the next book. Um, there you also have met his heroine, um, but I'm not going to tell you who she is because it's not obvious in the first book. And so I'm going to leave people guessing about who our other half of the love couple is.
Oh, okay. We do have someone. I didn't see who. It doesn't have the name of who it is, but they say, "I love it when a famous character is transplanted to a different setting." Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to take like characters that people know and sort of give them completely, I mean, they have completely new personalities too. So
Yeah.
it's like completely new setting, completely new personality, but they have, bits and pieces of the original characters in the original story.
Yeah. That's yeah, and it is. It's there. You have the potion that turns Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde. Although it is interesting to see the internal struggle of that character when he's in his transformation, because there is a bit of an internal struggle. Oh, the Facebook
Yes.
users says that Rebecca said the
Ah,
transcript. So thank you, Rebecca. Yeah. Oh, I saw you just drinking some tea. I'm going to pour myself my first cup
yes.
of tea here. So what, you're also a tea aficionado. I am a tea aficionado. So what is it that you're drinking today?
Well, right now it is the evening in Michigan. So I am drinking an herbal tisane. It's a hibiscus and a fruity hibiscus. So it's got like hibiscus and rose hips and some berries and stuff. It's very red. I don't know if I can hold that up so the camera can see it, but it's
Like I
very
can
red.
look over and be like, oh yeah, yeah, I see.
Yeah. It's very pretty. It looks nice in the teacup.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I've got a black tea because it's only 2 o'clock here. So I'm
Yep.
hoping to, buckle down and get work done, but we'll
There
see.
you go. Yes, I had my black tea earlier, so
I
I'm
saved
trying to
enough.
remember what did I have today in my black tea. I have so many of them. I think I have the one from our library. Our local library has this really cool summer game.
Uh-huh.
And you can earn points in all kinds of ways. You can do the standard, like read a bunch of books and fill out the form. And you get points for that. You can log your reading hours and get points for that. And then they put up like codes that you can find all over the city and at events and in the libraries. And then you can buy things at their little summer game shop, and you get things like library merch. So, like, I have a tote bag that has library on it, and a messenger bag, and T-shirt, and all sorts of stuff. And they have little fun things for kids and all sorts of stuff. But this year, actually, the last several years, they've had like tea and coffee are one of the things you can get from local companies.
That's
And
so
so
cool.
this year that I got it's a little pouch, only about that big, but it's like a nice quality black tea, and it's from a local tea place. It's very cool.
That's awesome. Wow. I wish our library did that. That's amazing. And I love that it's like a hide and go seek kind of like find things
Yes,
that have,
they have. It's basically like scavenger hunts, like around town.
that's so cool. That's wonderful. Um, So do you normally drink, are you a black tea drinker during the mornings then? Just
Yes.
to,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes, I like my black tea in the morning. Um, I don't necessarily like need it to wake up, but it's nice to have. Like
Yeah.
I like the way it tastes, and it got a little bit of energy and everything. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really like Darjeelings and kind of like light black teas. But I will drink pretty much anything.
Not so picky. I'm a bit picky. I am. But, I just figure I like what I like. So, oh
Yeah.
well. So getting back to the books and back to what we were talking about after our little sojourn there, I also want to show them. These are some of the books. I thought I got all of them. I might have missed one. But these are the ones that you're at. So you were talking about Eden's Voice was the one you were saying that is
Yes.
set in Ann Arbor.
Yes.
So
That's correct.
if you guys are going to go travel to Ann Arbor, Eden's Voice, it's right there.
Yep. And A Shot to the Heart is set in St. Louis at the 1904 World's Fair / Olympic Games, and that's why she has um, a bow and arrow is because she is an Olympic archer.
Oh,
In the
fantastic.
1904 games, the only women's event was archery.
I have a story about that same Olympics. I haven't written it, but I write about women's boxing, and in
Right.
1904, the U.S. wanted to have a women's boxing exhibition, and the British clubs were like, "If you do that, we're not coming." And so they downgraded it from an exhibition to a presentation, and they didn't advertise
Hmm.
it. Like the
Yes, they had a lot of like presentations and sort of side events that kind of went along with the Olympics. The whole thing is really fascinating. It was a big fiasco in many, many ways.
yeah.
Um, but there's all sorts of really strange stories about that era, and it was really fun researching that book. I did end up setting another book in St. Louis just because of all the fun stuff I learned about it.
Fantastic. So Rebecca says, I'll have to read it. I'm from St. Louis.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
and I think the art museum is like the only real building that's still left because they built the whole fair to be disposable.
right.
I know it's like I can't even imagine. I just
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they did that for every World's Fair, didn't they? Because I think the
hmm
Eiffel Tower
yeah,
was supposed to be a disposable, like it was supposed to be torn down after the World's
yeah.
Fair.
Paris had several World's Fairs where they were like, we built all this stuff and now it's gone. Like,
Yeah.
okay. The Crystal Palace got taken down and like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. There's
kind of
actually
amazing.
some in San Francisco too. There was it was like a jeweled palace or something like that. And from
Right.
the descriptions of it, it sounded beautiful and amazing. And then they were like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, but we just took it down. Like, no,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I know. I
They're like,
can't imagine. And I love those giant glass and iron buildings. Um, so
yeah.
actually, I kind of incorporating those kind of that kind of Victorian stuff into what I'm writing now, which has been really fun.
Oh, that's fantastic. Um, so when you're setting other things in Midwest, most of my stuff I write is set in London, and so there's always, and it's Regency, so you always a
Excuse
couple
me.
set things, right? You always got to hit
Hmm.
going to Bond Street or
Right.
the Tens, or you have these landmarks that you can draw on that really
Right.
readers. So because there is not this huge, gigantic subset genre of book set in the
Hmm.
Midwest, what are your points that you think are important to hit when you're discussing the Midwest as setting to like really hit home?
Hmm. I just like to put in some of the place details and some of the things that were going on or things that were made there or famous there.
Hmm.
So like they drank Verner's ginger ale
I saw that. And yeah.
in Detroit. Sorry,
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Um,
sorry.
oh no, take a sip. Yeah. I
I'm never
actually.
yet. I like talking always like.
Oh, it's understandable. I'm actually from North Dakota, so originally.
Uh-huh.
So I'm also from the Midwest, and I have spent a fair time in Michigan, oddly enough. And I have several friends who are from Michigan, who are Michiganders. So
Yep.
I've been to all the homes, you know,
Hmm.
done the whole thing. For those who are not familiar with HOMES, it is the acronym for all the Great Lakes. It's just the easy way to
Yes.
remember. So, but yeah, so so yes, when I saw the Vernors in the text, I was like, "Oh, there's one."
Hmm. Yep. So they drink burners, and I do like mention the Great Lakes, especially when we will get to Nemo's book, because of the submarine. There will be all sorts of fun stuff writing about the Great Lakes. I really, really liked researching that one too. Um,
Well, there are
I
so many
talk about
happening.
Detroit and Windsor and the, how close Canada is, because I feel like a lot of people don't quite get how, how how close we are. Like, well, Michigan's near Canada. Like, no, Michigan is like as close to Canada as we are to Ohio. We're like connected to Canada, except it's by water.
Yeah,
Um, and it's not weird for people from Detroit to be like, oh, I'm popping over to Canada for part of the day.
yeah, and
That's that's where all they had to raise the drinking age in Windsor to be 21 to match Michigan because all of the 19-year-olds would go to Canada and drink.
yes, that was actually one of my friend's dads. Actually, that when they raised the drinking age, it was like, what? But that was what we did.
Hmm.
um, yeah, and I gotta say that was one of the fun things that yeah, when you live in a place that is so far north that you're watching Canadian TV shows, you're listening,
Hmm.
Canadian radio stations come over, like it's
Yeah,
doesn't really feel like it's a foreign country. That's when it kind of feels like, oh yeah, Canada,
right,
like
exactly.
that we have. It's just right there.
Right, exactly. And sometimes people from around here will say things like, "Oh, I've never been out of the country," and somebody's like, "What about Canada?" And they're like, "Oh, right, Canada."
Oh, but that's not.
Because it feels so normal because it's so close.
Yeah, yeah. We didn't, and well, I mean, I don't know what borders are like there, but yeah, it was weird when some of the borders actually got
Hmm.
like agents
Yeah,
at.
close. It was Yeah, well, it was very weird when the border security started getting stronger and basically the lines got longer. And you're
Yeah,
like, why is it taking so long? And then with the pandemic, when they actually closed the border, it was like, what? People aren't actually going between? Like, that's weird.
yeah, yeah. I gotta say, I went through the border last year in Washington, so just above
Mhm.
Seattle, and
Right.
it was strange because there's a whole town on the U.S. side
Hmm.
that was all boarded up because there had been no one going back and forth for so long that
Hmm.
everything just closed.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was eerie to go through.
Yeah. That is very strange.
Yeah,
But there's the proximity between Detroit and Windsor is really fun because when I write about it, I can do things like have people sneak across the border for some reason, or
yeah,
it's easy to go. You get by boat when the river freezes over. You can drive over the ice. Um,
yeah.
so there's fun things that I could play with just from the proximity.
Oh, that's really cool. And I do want to just kind of put out there for people who don't know, what would you say is the definition of steampunk? Like, how would you? Because
It's a pretty like broad idea. It's a lot of things can kind of fall in the steampunk umbrella or the sort of steampunk adjacent umbrella. It's basically like a Victorian aesthetic, but it also has a sort of futurism with it. It's kind of like a retro futurism where they have computers or um, high technology of some sort. They can build cars before there were cars and um, things like that. In my Sass and Steam series, they have what they call mechanical dragons, which some of them look like actual dragons and some of them look like dogs or cats or things, but they're all little creatures built out of mechanical parts, and a lot of them are very autonomous and do their own thing as if they were like robots, which of course is impossible.
yeah,
Um, but they're all made out of gears and tubes and things like that. So that's kind of the steampunk aesthetic. There's these futuristic elements. It's like if you took Jules Verne and wrote it as a modern person rather than him writing it at the time. It was science fiction. But if I write the same kind of stuff, then that's kind of steampunk now.
Yeah, fantastic. So one of the things I did enjoy in the Courtesan and Mr. Hyde was that, well, Dr. Jekyll distrusts machines, and so you have this
Yes,
whole genre that is about machines and as being part of your setting, and then having a character that's like, "Oh no, I hate those things." Like,
yes,
hard pass.
that
Ugh.
that was very fun. Um, because in my other books that I've written that are steampunk that have are very machine heavy. Um, I hadn't really written any characters that are very like anti-machine, and he's like the technophobe person that is like, I touched the computer and it broke. Can someone fix it for me? And so he's that sort of person because I know a lot of us sometimes feel that way. Or like, I didn't do anything and now it's not working.
Yeah, I
Um,
didn't mean to. Ah.
yep, exactly. So he always feels like that. He worries like, if I touch the machine, it'll probably break.
Yeah.
Um, and that gets to contrast nicely with Victor, who is very machine happy.
Yeah,
Like,
and he
he
also
builds things.
yeah, Victor seems like a very
His Frankenstein will be steampunk, not a like living person.
okay. Yeah, I was kinda curious, like, how are you gonna do some
Yes, the Frankenstein's monster is steampunk. So
okay.
he'll be like an android robot um, to continue the steampunk theme.
Oh, fantastic. So, have you always written in steampunk for your published works, or um, are you thinking
When
about or
when I first started writing, like with the idea to like get whole novels completed, ultimately published, I was writing mostly like kind of fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, stuff like that. Um, there was always heavy romance threads going through them, and then I started. It was actually in 2015, National Novel Writing Month. I started um, writing this book, and I had um, it was inspired by a painting, The Bar at the Folie Bergère by Edward Manet,
mhm.
and that's my favorite painting. I love that painting. It has this barmaid, and she's standing at her counter with like oranges and champagne bottles and things around, and I wanted to write about her and give her a story. And so I started writing about her, and I made her um, have not be mixing up drinks, but be mixing up magic potions. So I'm like, this is going to be a world with magic potions where the only magic is the magic potions. So it's basically their technology. Um, and so I started writing that book. And then some ways in, I was like, she had such great chemistry with the side character who I put in there just because I was like, well, I'm gonna have a guy that's crushing on her. And they had great chemistry. I'm like, this is gonna be a romance. I'm just gonna go all the way. It's just gonna be full out romance.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's what I did. And eventually that book is what turned into How to Seduce a Spy, which was my very first book. It's also the one that won my first award. So that was really fun. That series kind of um, is really a borderline steampunk because it's not very technology heavy. They do have steam cars and they do have, trains and things that all run on these magic potions, but the magic is a little bit heavier. So it's kind of gaslamp fantasy, which is sort of like the magical version of steampunk.
Okay. So instead of being more of like a heavy science, it's got the magic element instead.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of steampunk has magic. But it's sort of some of them are much more sci-fi ish in their steampunk, and some of them are more fantasy, and some of them just kind of meet in the middle. Um, so it's a very broad genre of things.
It really is. Yeah. All the ones that I've read have been I don't know, very unlike each other.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's kind of
some of
interesting.
them have paranormal elements. Like Beck McMaster writes really great steampunk. She has the London Steampunk series, which is fabulous. I love them, but they have like vampires and werewolves, um, and the whole society like depends on the vampires and werewolves. Uh, So that's really fun. But not all steampunk has that. Not all
Yeah.
steampunk has any magic at all. So it's kind of it's really interesting what authors choose to do with it.
So you mentioned one. Do you have another recommendation that of other ones you'd have people read?
Uh, Anything by Gail Carriger. She's like that's how I like she was my first steampunk that I wrote or that
Mm.
I read was Gail Carriger's
Yeah.
Soulless, and that's a really super fun series. It's very funny. It's very like comedy of manners, and it has the steampunk technology and it has paranormal elements and it has like a mix of everything.
Yeah.
Um,
I've
so
read a
those are
couple of
fun.
hers, but I can't off the top of my head remember which ones they were. But yeah. No, I remember really enjoying her.
Let's see. I have like a whole steampunk shelf over there. Um, let's see. If people like the Jekyll and Hyde, Viola Carr has a whole series that's Jekyll and Hyde, and the the heroine is of the three books. She is the Jekyll and Hyde character. She's Dr. Eliza Jekyll, um,
Oh.
and she has her alternate personality of Lizzie Hyde, and that's a really fun series. I really like those two.
At first, it's ringing so many bells. I'm like, did I read it or did I just read about it? I can't remember. But yeah, that sounds yeah. Well, like Rebecca said, yeah, taking a character out of context and re
Hmm.
distributing them to different
Yes,
spots. Yeah,
I was like that.
yeah. And
Yeah,
well,
it's like so people say things like, "Oh, why do people read fan fiction? Like fan fiction's like a lesser like no, like that this book that I just wrote is fan fiction. It's just fan fiction about a classic, and people have been doing that forever. Like
absolutely.
Dante's Inferno is Bible fan fiction.
You are absolutely right. And I have never thought of it that way before, but absolutely true.
Paradise Lost also Bible fan fiction.
Bible fan fiction. Absolutely right. I really like that description. That is accurate. I never thought of it that way, but yes,
Yeah,
that's absolutely
people don't think about how much because like we all got our ideas from all the things we've seen and all the things we've read and so they're coming from places and we're using all that material. And fan fiction is just a way to do that same thing. It's just you're taking the characters you love and you're doing something new with them.
yeah, reordering in its own
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Ah, oh, that's hilarious. I'm gonna be thinking about that for like all day, like thinking all the other ones that are like, oh, that's Bible fanfic.
I'm sure there's a lot more.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about all of the ones that are coming out where they have a specific take on, an aspect, like a small portion of the Bible, like the Red Tent by Anita
Hmm.
Diamant. Um, uh, we have a couple of others. Finding Noah from our paper lantern writer McCall probably would fall into that category. Set in the Bronze Age.
Yeah.
Um, so
And,
yeah,
and Greek mythology is like big right now. Like, there's lots of Greek mythology retellings.
yeah, yeah. Well, and American Gods
Hmm.
is by Neil
Yeah.
Gaiman, like another.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. Now I'm gonna be just thinking about what is
And he's brilliant. Nobody's going to say he's not brilliant.
right.
And he's
Yeah.
borrowing from stuff too.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because
fantastic.
it's really fun to take one of these things and mix it up and see, what you can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And
completely agree. No, that's fantastic. Um, so you and I might be at the same conference, I think.
yes,
Is
yes, the historical romance retreat. Yes,
yes. So
I am preparing for it. So I like getting like work because I have some costumes that needed fixing. So I have, uh, I will show you just like a little piece of it, but I have a real Victorian dress.
oh
So this
wow.
is this is the shoulder
Does
sleeve.
it have like the big oh yeah,
It's
fantastic.
a little, yeah, it's a little bit of a poof. It's not huge mutton chops. Um, but it's sort of moving that direction. I think it's probably, oops, dropping things. I think it's probably like um, late 1880s or early 1890s. I don't have an exact date. It was given to me by a friend who was like, "Would you like this Victorian dress?" I was like, "Yes,
I have a
of
place.
course." Yeah, so I'm doing some mending to it so that I can wear it for the big ball at the
Yeah.
end of the historical romance retreat.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm really excited about it. That's one of the things that is making me feel underwater because I don't have costumes, and so I'm like
Mhm.
gathering costumes for this, and I'm gonna drag my husband along, and so getting him costumed, and it's just
Mhm.
feels like a lot.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to be costumed for if you don't want to. So, like
Yeah.
if you just hit a few things, then you're probably good. You can feel comfortable the rest of the time. I will
Yeah.
probably be in costume or costume related outfits for most of the time, just because a lot of my costume pieces are also my normal clothes.
Fantastic. So this must be the buying clothes at Renaissance festivals then.
Yes, like this one is not, this dress is not from a Renaissance festival. It came off of Amazon. Um, but it's got that sort of medieval style off the shoulder bodice look. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of sort of stuff that can double as costume pieces or regular everyday pieces.
That's fantastic. That's a smart way to go. So you can always go either way with it. That's smart.
Yep. And
That's
sometimes my everyday clothes verge very much into costume territory, and people probably think I'm strange when I'm out walking, but because sometimes I will wear a hat like this and go out
yeah,
walking.
that's fantastic. I love that you do that. That's wonderful. Well, plus if anybody's
I think more people should wear hats. So I want hats to be popular because I love hats. So
well,
like
and
not
more
that
people
everybody has to wear them, but it would
are
be cool if like people felt comfortable wearing them.
yeah. Well, and I think that's
Trying
really
to
what it
set the trend.
yeah. Well, I think that's true. Like people feel like they're being a weirdo if they wear a hat. But hats used to be a thing. Hats used to be
Yeah.
every all the time. There were
Hmm.
hats.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about like when you're writing historical books and you're like, they all had hats, like all the time. You have
Yeah.
to remember that they have hats.
Yeah, always, and you're like, "Oh god, the gloves. What are they doing with the
Yes.
gloves? Where are they putting the
Yeah.
gloves at this time?"
Right. I know. There must have been lost gloves everywhere. It's like people lose their face masks all the time. People must have lost a lot of gloves.
Yeah. Well, I think about it too, if you didn't have running water and you don't have germ theory, then you
Hmm.
still must have noticed, "Oh, if I go without my gloves, I get sick."
Yeah,
But, they would take off
definitely.
their gloves to eat, and then they would put their
Right.
gloves on.
Exactly. And that keeps your hands clean without even having to wash them.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's kind of brilliant that you had this, like, protective layer on you,
Hmm.
and then you come home and you take the protective layer off, and then I mean, it
Yeah.
really is especially in a time with no penicillin, it's kind of a
Right.
smart
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, if everything was really dirty, I probably would want gloves too.
yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any non-steampunk reading recs that you have for other people?
Yeah, sure. I read most my biggest genre that I read is just historical romance. Um, so I read a lot of that. I also read occasionally paranormal, and then a little bit of contemporary. Most of the contemporary I've read recently has been like queer contemporary. So like,
Favorite on those?
yeah, like I liked Annabeth Albert's Conventionally Yours, which was like these two card game geeks. The card game is like Magic the Gathering essentially, and they're going to a tournament and they road trip to this tournament together and fall in love, and that was super fun. Um, so that was a fun one. Trying to remember all the things I've read recently as
No, I
well.
totally just put you
That
on the
was
spot.
so hard. Maybe I should pull up my Kindle and like see what I
I always have
recently
to go
read.
to, like, my library list and be like, "What did I
Yes.
read?" I know I read a bunch of books, but
Yeah,
what was it?
I put that's the main reason why I put everything in Goodreads is because that way I can remember what I've read, and then I can look and be like, oh right, that's what it was.
Yeah.
So let's see, what have
Well,
I read recently?
Paper Lantern Writers is historical fiction, so I guess we should probably highlight historical fiction.
Yeah.
Um, if you have any that stood out
Oh,
to you.
I recently read both of the sort of side stories to Erica Ridley's Wild Winchesters series, which I am loving that series. It's been super fun. Um, each of the first three books was really fabulous. And then she's got these like little side novellas that are like heist mysteries with the sort of friend group. What is her name? Tommy's lady. I
Yeah,
don't remember. Oh
so
man.
I am absolutely ashamed because I want to read Erica Ridley. I have two of her books on my Kindle. I have a free code that I got at a conference to get one of her books. I get her newsletter. I have never read it. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like it's one of those ones that
I
it's just
highly recommend the Wild Winchesters. It would be a really great place to start because they're like found family. They're really wacky. They have all these really wild adventures. So and as long as you're okay with like really over the top wild family dynamics, um, and you go into it expecting this to be a romp because they really are. Um, that it's super fun. All of the characters are very quirky. Um, and each has their own like individual talents and you just like you want to see every sibling in this family get their HEA because they're all like adorable in their own ways.
oh, that's fantastic. Well, and that's why actually it was the Wild Winchesters. I remember a couple of years ago hearing an interview with her and being like, "Oh, I have to read these books," and then I do my stupid whatever thing that I do that makes me not read a book because I want to read it, which is the absolute worst. Like I'm only punishing me for no apparent.
I do that too where I'm like, oh, I really want this book, and then the book will even arrive in the mail or I'll grab it from a bookstore and then it sits there and I'm like, I really I can't start this book right now. I'm like, I don't know why, but like some brain block or something.
Yeah, it's
um
so weird.
and it's really weird.
And I do it all the time. I do it with people's like friends books.
Hmm.
Like send me the book that they just got out. Someone I meet at a conference
Right.
or on social media or something. They send me the book, and I'm like, "This looks great," and they're my friend, and I like them, and I can't wait, and it's been so well reviewed. And I just put it down. What is that? I don't even know what that is.
Yep. I don't know. It happens to me too. It's the strangest phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like we get writer's block or writer's block, whatever, where we are like, I don't want to write or I don't feel like this is working and nothing's working. It's like the reading has the
Yeah.
same kind of weird thing.
Yeah, I'm currently in that with my writing right now, where I'm like, I am almost done with my new one. And I know that I need to go back and pick either this chapter or this chapter to be, the chapter that happens.
Right.
I can't do it. 5 days. I haven't touched it because I'm just like, I can't make this decision. I can't do it. It's the worst.
Yeah. Just commiserating.
Yeah.
Like, I know how that goes. Like, I need to write something because it's been too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so did you find any of the historical fiction on your Kindle to recommend to people?
Yes, another one I read recently is I read the most recent historical mystery, which is one of my other favorite categories. I read the most recent Verity Kent book by Anna Lee Huber. Those are set post World War One, and she was a spy during the war, and her spy things sort of come back into her life, like the people she worked with, and some of the things she learned or saw while she uh, was working during the war, like pop up in these mysteries. And so there's sort of eventually there develops like a sort of a through plot with an antagonist, um, that's a sort of like Moriarty evil villain. Um, and so that's kind of running through the series. But there's also then each one has its own self-contained mystery, and there's a lot of dealing with the stuff that people dealt with after the war. Like all these people had PTSD. A lot of their friends and family were dead. They had to go through the Spanish flu, and they had all this stuff. And then they're just kind of like, I can't take it. I'm going out drinking. Um, and so the characters all have to wrestle with these very like real world issues as they're going around and doing all this intrigue and spying and solving murder mysteries. So that's a really enjoyable series.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
I've read most of those on audiobook, and the audiobooks are very well done.
Oh, fantastic. So yeah, so tell me how you feel about audiobooks for your own work too, because it is an expensive venture to get into audiobooks.
It is. So far, only one of my books is an audiobook because it is very pricey. Um, that's How to Seduce a Spy. The first one has an audiobook. I would love to get audiobooks of all of them because I read probably like three-quarters audiobooks. Um, it's I have I get less of the I can't pick this book up with audiobook.
Yeah.
And I can get it done while I'm folding the laundry or taking a walk or washing the dishes or whatever. Um, and so I get through books faster. Um, and I had like I said, I find it easier to just to pick it up and keep going. I also find it easier to try things that I'm a little hesitant on, where I'm like, no, I don't know about that. But then I find it on sale on audiobook, and I'm like, well, I might as well listen to that. Um, so I found it really great for my personal reading. So I would really love to have more audiobooks. For the series that I'm writing right now, which won't be out until I won't start that one until sometime next year. But it's a completely new series from everything else I have, and I'm hoping to run a Kickstarter for it to do the publishing and try to raise money so that it can be either an audio first um, version or an audio ebook at the same time
Ah,
release.
yeah.
So I'm trying to learn about Kickstarter and things like that. I'm hoping I can come up with some really cool special editions and swag and stuff that people can get if they help me pay for an audiobook because
Yeah,
it's the money up front is like the narrators have to be paid. They
right.
do a lot of work.
It's
Um,
true.
and that's how they make their living. So, because the other choice would be AI read audiobooks, and I don't want to go that direction. Like, I hear enough of that voice on my Google Maps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not great. And the inflection ends up weird and words end up
Right.
with, yeah, it's just weird. The, what is it? The uncanny valley has not yet been breached there for
Mhm.
that. Um, do you have any like business end as a writer, things that you wish you knew when you first started out that you've learned along the way?
Um, and I don't know. I feel like I'm always still learning things, and I know there's a lot of stuff that I know now that I didn't know at the beginning.
Hmm.
Um, but every time somebody asks, like, "Oh, can you give me some newbie advice?" It's sort of always like I still kind of feel like I'm a newbie sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's I think part of one of the things about especially being an indie author is that you're going to be learning all the time because they keep changing things. And like Amazon used to only have Mobi files, and I had to make all my ebooks in Mobi and in EPUB. And now Amazon's like, good, we'll take EPUB. And so now I don't have to do that anymore. Um, and so you have to be prepared for like things. And then like promotional things that I used, like the first two times I ran a promo from a certain site, it worked great. And I got people buying my books. And then I used it again and it got zero sales. Um, so there's always like weird changes going on.
Yeah.
Uh, and that you kind of have to just be prepared for that. Um, let's see, what else would I like to know?
Well, I mean, just to kind of prompt you here, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking at your covers. So you have some really different takes on the different covers that you have. And the reason why I talk about it is because The Courtesan and Mr. Hyde has a very pulp kind of cover to
Yes.
it, whereas The Earl
Yes.
and the Train has a very classic historical romance cover to it.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I'm kind of curious. And same thing with Eden's Voice and Shot to the Heart. Like those are very steampunky sort of
Yes.
covers.
That whole series has that sort of same. Every background is like a slightly different color, but they all have like the gears and that kind of uh, neutral color neutral color palette background.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then like the Earl on the Train, and which is that's in the same series as Love at Second Sight. Those two are both potions books, and they all have very bright colors. It's always a heroine in the center, um, and so that was kind of the gimmick for that series. Um, the Courtesan and Mr. Hyde, I wanted this series to be pulpy. I had this idea because it's calling back to these like monster sci-fi kind of stories. It has a bit of a pulpy vibe, um, and so I wanted to go Pulp Fiction cover.
Hmm.
Partly because I like those covers. I think they're neat. I think they're really eye-catching.
Hmm.
So I was like, this would be the right kind of series to do that kind of cover with. And so I talked to my cover designer, and we were like, well, what can we do? I'm like, I gave her some pulp images of like books that I thought were neat, and she looked up some more, and like we looked at actual paper books that we had lying around the house, and we kind of came up with the basic idea for the cover, and she just put it together from all the random pieces.
I mean, that is like one of the fun things about being an indie author where you have that
Hmm.
level of control where you can be like, what do I want to do for this? Like, what aesthetic am I really going for?
Right.
Because there are,
Yeah, it's really fun. I like to be able to, think about the covers and how I'm going to get the characters portrayed on the front because I'm the one who looks for the stock images that go into making the covers. It's like I flip through things and like I have to find somebody that kind of represents this character in a way, and it's always kind of challenging with whatever is you find out there.
yeah, yeah, no, that's true. I'm thinking about like current covers in literary worlds that are very abstract right now.
Yes, yes, they're very abstract heavy, the literary books. I have a hard time telling them apart. So I'm like, is that a mystery or a thriller or is it a literature book? I'm not sure because that's been very like kind of genre spanning that trend, and I find it difficult to process that at bookstores. I'm like, everything looks the same. What am I doing?
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of curious to see if that trend is uh gonna go away because I could let it
Yeah,
go. I would not be mad about it.
yeah, no, I wouldn't either. Yeah, I feel like I would really like my genre fiction to be clear, like what it is. I'm like, is this a literary book or is this a genre book? And I really want to be able to tell the difference
Yeah,
because that's two very, very different reading moods.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Well, and I think to bring back those covers again, and I think having people on the cover really
Mhm.
says this is a genre book. You know, whether it's going to
Yes,
be a mystery or a romance or something like that. Like
yeah, you're right.
the Spinster Swindle. You're like, that is going to be a romance. Like those two
Yep.
people are getting naked. They're going to get
Yes,
naked.
they are. Yep. Yes, that series, the two that you had like on top of each other, Mr. Swindle and the Scoundrels Who Do Con.
Mhm.
Um, they're both historical romance. They're Victorian. They have a lot of like spiritualism elements in them, but no like actual magic. Um,
Mhm.
there's a little bit like with every time there's like fortune tellers, they always have. I tell people like if you see a fortune teller in my book and they make a prediction, like a real fortune teller, because I've had fake fortune tellers in there too. But like if the characters like get up their fortune told, if a main character gets their fortune told, um, there's probably going to be some way. It might not be like it might be like one of those Oracle of Delphi, you didn't understand this correctly.
Mhm.
But the fortune tellers in my books tend to have some kind of actual fortune telling ability. Um, so that pops up. But so that series, the covers are made to reflect the spiritualism elements. So in the first book, the hero is a spirit photographer. So his book looks like a spirit photograph. And in the second book, um, the heroine is a spiritualist. And so her cover looks like a tarot card.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna pop those back up there. Oh,
Yep.
I
And so
see.
that's the tarot. You can see the outline of the card around it and the moon card. The moon is like a theme throughout the whole book.
Ah, okay. I see. Yeah, I honestly I didn't really connect that at first. I did connect that with the Scoundrel's New Con. I did see that. I was curious about that. I was like, well, maybe he's a ghost. There could be a lot of things
Yes. He's
happening
not
here.
actually a ghost, but there's,
Well, that's
there
fascinating.
are ghostly things happening in the book, and they have to find out what is actually behind everything.
Oh, and that's fascinating because yeah, there was this huge movement of spiritualism at the time in Victorian
Yeah.
times. So yeah, that really does fit right in with what was actually happening in the cultural zeitgeist. So that's fascinating.
Yes. They were really, really, really into it for quite a while. Like through most of the century and into the 20th century, it was very popular.
Yeah. Oh, that's
So
fascinating
that's a fun thing to research and to write about.
to see how. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, no, those look fascinating. Um, we are kind of approaching the end here. Do you have any other words of advice, books you'd like to recommend, anything like that that you want to let everybody know?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I'll give my writing advice, which is um that like there is no hard and fast writing advice. Like if you have a process that works for you, that's great. You don't have to write every day. You don't have to. You can edit as you go, or you can never edit until you get to the very end. Like everybody is very, very different. Um, so don't freak out if you try a piece of advice that doesn't work for you. Because I don't think anybody writes the way I do, and I don't write the way any of my critique group does, and everything's completely different.
Yeah, I hear you. It's that is actually excellent advice. No two writers write the same. There's not a right way to write.
There you go.
That's terrible. I'm
Yeah,
sure somebody else
but
has
that's
said
okay. I love puns. Which anybody who's read my books, there's puns on the titles, there's puns in the book. So
fantastic. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for being here.
yeah,
Um,
thank you for having me.
this was a really fun conversation, and
Yeah,
I will see you in 3 weeks.
yes, that would be really awesome. Get to meet you in person.
Yeah. Oh, this is gonna be fantastic. Yeah, historical romance retreat. I don't think they have an online component, so anybody who isn't signed up to go in San Diego, you're just gonna miss out. So sorry about
Yep.
that.
Sorry. Well, we'll post pictures.
Yeah, no, we'll do lots of pictures, I'm sure. But yeah,
Yes. My
I
Instagram will probably be covered with pictures.
yes, mine too, probably. All right. Well, so I'm gonna pop you off here, Catherine. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Bye.
All right, guys. I want to remind you of some upcoming things. In addition to the fact that you should probably be going over to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you decide to buy your books and finding some of these lovely titles here. I can highly recommend The Courtesan and Mr. Hyde, but of course, as we discussed, any of those would probably be a fascinating read. So next month we are, oh, that is the one for this month. Next month we are going to have another steampunk, although the Chinese twist on it. We're going to have Jeannie Lin, who also writes about Chinese history, which is going to be super fascinating. I've read a couple of her books. They're great. I've been on a panel with her. It should be just a really fascinating conversation that we have. Sorry, now I'm losing my voice. I think it's contagious. And if you want to get reading, We are going to be doing our Fifth Friday book club, which is the book for this month is Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. So get to reading and you can watch our live uh, chat on that and participate there with the chat feature. And then, of course, I have to brag about this. Our anthology is up for pre-order right now. It is 8 short stories from 7 different centuries. So please go pre-order that now. It will be dropped November 1st. So that is exciting. So you guys, it's been wonderful. And I will see you next month, October 16th on Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And I will see you guys later. Thank